Hello, my name is Scott Meeks. I'm with Lightspeed Systems. I am one of the strategic account managers here with Lightspeed. Thanks for joining me a little bit today, and thanks for your time. We're going to go through the Alabama House Bill 166, the Focus Act. So, what do K-12 schools need to know, and kind of go through the bill and kind of what's required from that from a compliance standpoint, and then talk a little bit about how Lightspeed Systems has solutions in place already that can really help you meet those requirements and stay compliant as we move forward into this next year. So looking at the House bill itself, the goal of this session is to really kind of have an overview, which I'm sure you've looked into it yourself, but also what does compliance look like? And once again, as I mentioned before, how is Lightspeed positioned to help you meet those requirements, not just the requirements of the bill, but just really kind of go beyond that to meet it and bring so much more to the table when we're trying to manage this new kind of bans that we're seeing on devices at school, and then the student data privacy and what's going on with hacking. And there's so much happening that are being put in place into districts as we see these kind of legislations come across, not only in Alabama, but in many other states. So not dissimilar for other House bills that we have seen in Florida or in Ohio and other places, Georgia as well. So understanding House Bill 166, the Focus Act. So what is that overview? So it was signed into law on May 14th, 2025. It's going to go into effect July 1st, 2025. So that's on us pretty quick. And who's it going to apply to? Well, all public K-12 schools in Alabama. What is that legislative summary, just kind of on a top level, is to require each K-12 public school to adopt policies restricting students' use of wireless communication devices during instructional time and implement protections around student internet access, communication tools, and really importantly, data privacy. So what are the requirements going to be of this bill? First, we want to prohibit students' use of cell phones, smartwatches, and wireless communications during instructional time. I think we've seen just studies over the last decade or so at the impact of these devices, especially post-COVID. So many states are trying to take this approach to say, hey, how do we regain that instructional time? And they're moving towards saying, let's eliminate the biggest distraction, which is going to be personal communication devices. Second aspect is going to be limited internet access to age-appropriate educational material. This is going to be really important as we have users of different ages, obviously, throughout a K-12 environment, some below 13, which is a requirement of some applications, or above 13. And then we also have users that are older. So how are we going to help you manage that, or how is a district going to manage that? And then also we're going to require safeguards for student use of email, chat rooms, and other communication platforms to monitor those. And also blocking access to hacking tools, unlawfully obtain data, and online criminal activity. So really, this is some of the efforts that kids will go through from a malicious standpoint, malicious behavior, not only internally, but also externally. So we want to be able to look at that, protecting your network, not only from your internal users, but anything that might be coming in from the outside. So this is an ongoing challenge, right, for districts. This isn't new, but this is part of the requirement. A lot of districts are really focused on this already to prevent any kind of data loss or breaches or anything of that nature. So this is going to fit right into that really well. Also, we want to prevent access to digital tools that collect or misuse student personal data. Now, that could be a variety of things. That could be things that you aren't aware that are being utilized or being accessed by your staff or students. But really also it may pertain to resources, educational platforms, applications, educational websites, right? Not uncommon for someone to go to a trade show, ISTE, or the other big ones or state level ones, and see a great tool, or get maybe hear about it from another teacher and says it's really easy. You just go to their website and then have your kids log in with Google. And so really difficult sometimes for districts to understand when they might have a potential issue with data sharing. You might have putting data sharing agreements in place if you're not requiring that from all of your providers. How do we even know what is data is being shared and when? So where do we start on that? So it's going to be part of the requirements. Once again, we're going to get into a tool that's going to really help you do that. And the last is prohibit access to social media platforms unless teachers directly, unless it's teacher directed solely for the educational purposes. So this might be, I think, sometimes Facebook, maybe Instagram, different other kind of personal tools or social media tools like Pinterest or things where they might use for art ideas. So need a mechanism where we can block those, but then also give teachers the ability to get access to that content. So what does this compliance look like? District-wide enforcement of device use bans during instructional time. Once again, we're not just seeing this in Alabama. This is happening across many states simultaneously as we're looking to get some of that instructional time and reduce distractions from these personal devices. Granular filtering rules by grade, device, and network. So many districts may have a kind of a blanket policy from a filtering perspective because of the grade requirements, because of the age-appropriate requirements of content. We're going to want to be a lot more granular, and we can talk about how we can help you be and achieve that. So kind of a broad-based DNS policy where everyone gets the same thing is probably going to be something that's going to want to be addressed. How do we get granular information down to individual grades, devices, or individual networks? And then we need the visibility into all applications and digital tools being used by students and staff as well. But more importantly, in this House bill, from a compliance standpoint, it's going to be around students. So can you see at any given time and know any educational tool or any digital tool, an application or a web-based app? Do you know what is being accessed by your students? Do you have a mechanism to understand? You probably have a approval process if you're a Google district and you're using Google Apps, right? That was kind of put into a law last October, or requirements by Google, but that really doesn't protect you from kind of web-based access. And so we're going to talk about how do we see those? How can we help you identify those? And then ultimately make sure that we're not allowing access to those content. Also, an approved app workflow and flagged privacy risks. So this is another thing that we're seeing a lot of districts need to be put in place as part of this compliance is before we start giving access to content, how are we going to approve that? What's that vetting process going to look like? And then do I have a tool that's going to help me do that quickly and easy and accurately? It is really hard to kind of parcel through all the data agreements and workflows and all of that. Some districts just kind of have a spreadsheet in Google, really difficult to do. And really can take up a lot of man hours. So we need a better way that is happening, coming us right from the device itself. So as those students are accessing these devices, know exactly what's happening, flag those risky ones, have an app workflow before we approve things. And then also the teacher-directed exception policies, clearly logged and auditable. So lots in that. But nothing difficult, right, from a perspective of Lightspeed systems. So if you're not familiar with Lightspeed, we have been in the K-12 filtering and other classroom management and other aspects, student safety, data compliance for over 25 years. So one of the first things that we can really help in this is going to be the Lightspeed web filter. So this is real-time filtering by category, user group, time of day, devices, and it's going to block access to the inappropriate content such as social media, hacking sites, communication tools, all of that. The really kind of thing that separates Lightspeed from a lot of solutions is the deep granular categorization that we have in our platform, really breaking out all these different aspects, and we can allow that content and block that content appropriately. But most importantly is the database is so large, and we've been categorizing for over 25 years for K-12. The needs are while this is being mandated, these needs have always been in place for districts. And so the granularity of the database, the accuracy of categorization is going to be such a critical part of this. And I think if you were to take a look at the Lightspeed systems, hands down, I think of any solution in this space, just because we've been doing it so much longer and have put such a huge focus on this, is really categorizing things appropriately and really subcategorizing the instructional based content, your educational based content. So from an age appropriate content, filtering policies, specific categories, policy based by user, by grade, however you have those things structured in your environment, we can easily accommodate that. It's something that we do with almost every district that we currently work with today. And then safeguarding for communication, right? So understanding chats and forums and emails and all those different communication platforms that are needed, but also eliminating the ones that they shouldn't be getting to. So it's really easy to block those categories at large to protect your environment, but then simultaneously make those exceptions for the ones that you need. And so it's a very easy thing to do. Think of this approach as I'm going to want to block most things. And then I have certain key things that I want to utilize. Very easy to open that up on a category base or an age level base. So really easy thing to do. And then also looking at these hacking tools and unlawful access. So one of the things Lightspeed has really been focused on for 25 years is really the security backbone behind the solutions that we have in place. So identifying proxies, VPNs, and these are all new, right? We have ones that get used, new ones pop up all the time. So how your unknown traffic is categorized and handled is such a critical portion of how you utilize your web filter. At no time would I think you would want to use a web filter that says, if we don't know what it is, we want to let it through and then try to figure out what it is afterwards. Absolutely not. For your students, if we do not know what the website is, or you've never seen it before, it's a new proxy, it's a new VPN, it's a new malware site or a threat of that nature. You don't want to allow that content to your students until it has been categorized properly and then put into that. And we typically see our unknowns get categorized within 24 to 48 hours. Then you can see where they are. Now, you can categorize those within your own environment however you would see fit. You don't need to wait for us to do so. So it gives you a lot of flexibility on how you manage it. And then social media use only if teacher directed. So part of the filter that we work in this is the overrides capability. So teachers would have the ability based on different policies or groups. So you could take the social media category or some of those things at large, or you could create a custom category that says these are the 2 or 3 that we do allow, like a Pinterest or something like that, that you can make overrideable for those teachers' policies. So, and then also whenever they do an override, there is an audit log that tells you exactly in a report that says who overrode this and when and how often. So we know by the user which teacher did and enabled access to that content, and we would have a full audit log of what that is. So really meeting from a filtering perspective, the compliance and the mandates that are within this House bill, really we are already built to do this. And so we've been doing this so long with kind of this approach anyway, but now we have just seen it being mandated. So if you haven't looked at the Lightspeed web filtering solution in some time, or have had it in the past, so much has changed from the hardware-based platform to the cloud-based. So I really encourage you to take a look at it if you're going to be considering making a change in this way. The other is going to be our Lightspeed Insight solution. So this was not unlike we're seeing here today in Alabama, a similar House bill in Ohio, which really kind of, this solution was the one that the state really kind of moved districts and encouraged them to take a look at. So this is a comprehensive visibility tool, and it allows us to see all applications and all web-based access to thousands of resources across the devices. So we're getting this data directly from the device, from the user interacting with those sites. We can see who that is. We can look at that at a district level, to a site-based level, all the way down to an individualized level. So there's an application that's a concern for you, wanted to see who's accessed that. We can identify those. So if we can identify unapproved applications in your environment, non-compliant or risky softwares with data compliance metrics built into it, monitors privacy policy changes, which is a really important thing. You might enter into an agreement with a solution, and those privacy policies may change. You may not remember to go back and look at that. And so there's a proactive reporting mechanism in there to let you know, hey, they have changed their privacy policies, and they would show you the comparison of what the 2 policies were and what was changed, added, or struck from that previous policy. And then also within this, part of this process is going to be having a workflow as you're looking at your different web apps and applications that are being used, and have an ability to approve those or not approve those. The great thing about these 2 solutions working together is they integrate together, that if you were to mark an application unapproved in this particular platform, it integrates within the web filter and would automatically block that. So think about this as we're looking at this from a data compliance standpoint in your IT department. We've eliminated a really important workflow bottleneck, which might be, hey, we see this website. Can you go into the web filter and then block that? We can make that decision right from here until you've decided, hey, it is safe, or we have approved it. So Insight will really help enforce the student data protection policies and align the usage of different applications and web apps with state and federal requirements. So the way it helps is we're going to prohibit access to websites, applications, or softwares that expose students to disclosure and or discrimination of their personal information. So how does it really help? We want to monitor these apps for not only misuse, but flag apps that collect, use, or share personal data and make you aware of those. Also, monitoring the apps for data misuse to detect hidden or unauthorized application use. You might say, hey, we don't want you to use this. This is not approved in our environment. You still may have users continue to do that. We're going to be able to identify that unauthorized usage, be able to tell you what users have actually accessed that. So then you can take appropriate measures. And then once again, we could just block that in this solution. It would then tell your web filter, if you're using Lightspeed's web filter, that, hey, we're not allowing this. And so that would automatically create that block path. So if we're going to have this process, we're going to need an app approval process. So we're going to help you put a workflow in place to review applications for compliance and data privacy. And then you can make the determination whether or not that's blocked or allowed in your environment. And then we'll even have a mechanism where teachers, from a transparency standpoint, we have a couple different list options. One is for families and staff, right? So oftentimes part of mandates like this is you have to publicly list what applications and softwares that you are using and what's their data requirements and all of those things. So once we've gone through this process and helped you approve these applications, there is a front-facing public list that you can publish, and you choose what data you want to share within that list. And what levels of compliances or information you want to share. That way, anyone who has questions about that publicly can go and take a look at that. Not only do we do that externally, but we help you do it internally by having a list where teachers can go and see what applications are approved, which ones are not, or if it's currently in review. And so it really gives them a mechanism as you're kind of handing down this information and really kind of training and talking to your teachers and users about what's appropriate and not appropriate. We are really going to give them a place to say, hey, these are the things that we approve. These are the ones that we don't. So a great workflow and transparency for everybody to help align with proper application and website usage and policy alignments for the mandates. So next step for districts. Audit your current device policies, filter in app usage, right? Identify gaps in enforcement and data privacy monitoring. Now, we would love to help you as you guys, the compliance kind of starts July 1. We know that's coming up in your new fiscal year. Still plenty of time to kind of get these things in place. If you are going to be taking a look at your solutions from a web filtering or insight standpoint or application usage, we would love to have a conversation with you. There is no harm in a 30 to 45-minute demo, walk through the compliance, how our solutions work. So if you haven't taken a look at these solutions, I really recommend and encourage you to get in touch with me or Lightspeed through the website and set up a demonstration so you can understand how we're going to fit into this. And we really believe with the solutions that we have in place that we are so much more fit for this particular House Bill 166 to help you reach your compliance. And then really want to help you establish teacher exception protocols and application workflows. So thank you guys so much for taking a few minutes to look at this information and kind of hear how Lightspeed is looking to tackle this and help districts stay compliant and really kind of go beyond the compliance and really bring forth a very robust solution to understand what's being done at the device level, how they're being used, a reporting mechanism and a workflow mechanism and an enforcement mechanism that's really not going to be a big gotcha tool, but it's going to be help you understand what's happening in your environment so you can understand where your risks are and then what steps that we can take to help you become compliant with House Bill 166. So once again, my email is smeeks@lightspeedsystems.com, or you can scan the QR code, but we would love the opportunity to visit with you, share a little bit more information and help you become compliant and just kind of share the larger Lightspeed plan for compliance around these kind of bills that we're seeing coming across the nation. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.